Welcome to the virtual college exploration for all Illinois students, sponsored by the Illinois Association for College Admission Counseling and StriveScan. Thank you for joining us. A few housekeeping announcements before we get started. You can use the Q&A button on your screen to type your questions to our presenter at any time. Your camera and microphone are off, so the panelists cannot see or hear you. This is just one of many different sessions happening, so be sure to check out the full schedule at IACAC.org. This presentation is being recorded and will be available within about a week at the same website, IACAC.org. I'd now like to turn it over to our presenter.
Thank you so much. I'm going to get my screen up here. Okay, everyone, thanks so much for taking the time to join us today. You are here with the University of Waterloo from Ontario, Canada. My name is Brian, and I'm one of the international recruiters here at the University of Waterloo. Normally, I would be able to be in person with you and traveling many other places around the world. However, I'm sitting in my home office now, as most of you are likely doing the same. So a little bit about Waterloo. We're known as Canada's Innovation University. So there's a number of different reasons why we continue to be referred to in this regard. It could be from the fact that Waterloo was the first university in Canada to introduce cooperative education, or co-op. It could be from the unique way that we integrate business into all different areas of study at Waterloo, so that students can study business while not having to give up their interest in other areas. Or maybe it's because of our unique creator-owned IP policy, meaning that if you create an idea, product, or design at Waterloo, you own 100% of it. Just a few of the many different reasons why continuously we are referred to as Canada's Innovation University. At Waterloo, we're home to over 100 different programs that are spread across 6 different faculties. We're a mid-sized school, meaning we have about 34 to 35,000 undergraduate students, with about 20% of that population being international students. I mentioned earlier about co-op. We have over 7,000 different co-op employers, which does mean we are home to the largest co-op program of its kind anywhere in the world. Just in case you're not sure where we're located, we're not too far away from Illinois, depending on where you are there. It can be anywhere from about an 8 to 10 hour drive. I know it's about 8 hours to get from Waterloo right to Chicago. So we're located in southwestern Ontario, about 60 miles west on the highway from downtown Toronto. So if you're familiar with Ontario at all, if you fly into Pearson International Airport in Toronto, we're about 45-minute drive away from the airport itself. We are a very student-friendly city here in Waterloo, and we have to be. In addition to the University of Waterloo, there's also one other university and a college that are located in the city. So while the city itself is quite small, only around 140,000 people live here year-round, we are part of the Waterloo region, which is home to about 500,000 people. However, with over 60,000 post-secondary students living in the city of Waterloo at any point in time, we have to make sure we're student-friendly and very student-focused. We are known as the technology and startup hub of Canada. In fact, we're constantly referred to as Silicon Valley North because we are second only to Silicon Valley in terms of the number of startups that are centered here. So Silicon Valley, then Waterloo region, number 2 in the world for number of startups that exist. And I mentioned the proximity to Toronto. We're a very easy bus and train ride away. In fact, there is a bus that picks up right on campus and will take you to Union Station, which is at the heart of downtown Toronto. And the bus station is only, the train station is only about a 5 to 10 minute Uber or taxi ride away. And that will again take you right to the heart of Toronto to Union Station. Our campus is about 1,000 acres in total. So that may seem really large, but it's only going to take you about 12 to 15 minutes to walk campus end to end. There's lots of green space on campus. We have a lake on the north side of campus and a creek that runs right through the middle of main campus. And much like the country of Canada itself, Waterloo is a very diverse, open, and inclusive community. Now, I mentioned those 100+ programs that we offer, and they're spread across our 6 faculties in applied health sciences, arts, engineering, environment, mathematics, and science. Now, you may notice that there's something missing here from the list that you may see at a lot of other universities, and that's business. So I mentioned early at the presentation about how Waterloo integrates business into other areas of study. So while we do have some standalone program like in accounting and financial management, what we do is instead of requiring students to give up your other areas of interest in order to focus solely on business, we allow you to continue studying in those other areas, but take business courses on top of them as well. So this is a really unique way to ensure that you do get a broad business education while still being able to study in other areas. And now some of you may be like me and have an interest in business, but aren't really strong in mathematics, and that's nothing wrong with it. Like I said, just like me, we do offer 4 programs here at Waterloo that you can give you the opportunity to study business without requiring math from the high school level. So you don't have to worry about that calculus or pre-calculus course. So the rest of the presentation is going to highlight 3 different areas: quality, communities, and preparation. Because when we look at student success here, we discovered that when you are at the intersection of those 3 things, that's going to equal success. So the first is quality, and it starts right from this point. The students that apply and come into Waterloo are high quality students because we have a minimum entrance average of 80%. Now, that doesn't mean 80% guarantees you admission to any program. It will be competitive for some of our programs, for example, in our faculties of arts, applied health science, environment, and even some science programs. But if you're looking at something like engineering, mathematics, computer science, or accounting, it becomes a bit of an issue with supply and demand. We have a great deal of demand for spaces in those programs, but we have very limited space. And what that does is drive up the cutoffs required to get in. So 80% competitive for most of our programs, but for some of those niche programs, they are going to require higher grades than that. I can't list out every single admissions requirement for all of our programs because they're all very different. The website you see at the top there will send you directly through to our admissions website, and you can pop in the program you're interested in and find out specifically what requirements there are for that. A few key highlights overall, though: all of our engineering programs do require chemistry. Okay, we recommend AP chemistry. It doesn't have to be, though. We have some caveats that will allow for other areas, but it does have to be. We do require a chemistry program for all engineering programs here. Additionally, the SAT and ACT is required for engineering. Engineering is the only area at Waterloo that requires this. And if you are struggling with submitting it or writing the SAT or ACT due to current COVID situations, send us an email and we will see what we can do to try and work through that. But as of right now, it is still required for engineering and test optional for all other programs. For if you're taking APs, some of our programs will require the AP exam with specific scores, and those will be highlighted in the admissions criteria. And if you're an IB student, we are going to require those 6 courses with minimum 3 at the higher level, just like you are required in order to get the IB diploma. Our admissions decision is based on a combination of academic scores and an admission information form. There are a small number of programs that have additional components, but they're niche programs that you'll be informed about what those additional requirements might be. But generally speaking, we do take a holistic approach, looking at the academic scores and an admission information form, which I'll highlight in just a minute. All of our applications are done through the Ontario University Application Centre, or OUAC for short. This is kind of like Common App in the sense that it's one central location where you can apply to any Ontario university. There are 22 universities located in the province of Ontario here, and the OUAC is the central application point. However, once you submit your application, that's all you have to do with the OUAC. After that, you're going to be communicating directly with each individual institution that you apply to. So you won't be submitting your grades or transcripts or anything like that through OUAC. That all goes directly to each individual school. So that admission information form that I mentioned, first bonus here is it's not an essay. You don't have to worry about writing out another admissions essay or sending another admissions essay out like you have to do with a lot of other schools, particularly in the United States, that you might be looking at. It's also not a big, long personal statement. It's an online form that we give you access to after you apply. There's a couple of short answer questions, and I do mean short answer as in 900 characters, not words, but 900 characters. And then the majority of the rest of the form is filling out tables and charts where you're listing out your extracurricular activities, volunteer work, athletics, part-time jobs, contests you participated in, awards you've won, things like that. So it's very straightforward to fill out, and it is a requirement for some of our programs and strongly encouraged for all other programs because not only can it help you from an admissions perspective, but can also be used in scholarships decisions. Speaking of which, we do recognize that university is an investment, especially when it comes to international students. So our tuition rates are going to vary based on fall 2020. Those rates are between $40,900 and $61,300. And those are Canadian dollars, not US dollars. And you can see at the bottom there, as of when I checked this morning, one Canadian dollar equaled exactly 76 cents US. It wasn't even 76 point something. It was $1 Canadian, exactly 76 cents US. So if you're looking at cost, Cons- consider the cost for Waterloo to be equivalent to what it would cost you to go to an out-of-state school for the most part. Your living expenses are going to be around $15,000 Canadian per year. And you can look here at some of the scholarships that we have available. This is not by any means an exhaustive list. The one thing to keep in mind, however, though, is that for international students, you shouldn't expect scholarships to cover a significant portion of your tuition and fees. We don't offer any 100% full ride scholarships. We don't even get up to 50%. Most of our scholarships are going to range likely between $2,000 to $5,000. So there is going to have to be additional money coming in on your side of things. And as you see right at the bottom there, 92% of international first-year students received an entrance scholarship in fall 2019. We don't have our fall 2020 numbers yet because our reporting date that we have to send our information to the government isn't until November 1st. So we do allow for a bit of attrition to occur at the start. So, if you're a sophomore or a sophomore, or maybe you're in your ninth grade, you may actually see those numbers next year. If you attend this presentation, you'll see our fall 2020 numbers. So that's the quality side. So now we're going to look at communities because you don't just study here, you do live here. Waterloo has a first-year residence guarantee for all incoming students. It's not mandatory. We don't force you to live in residence, but we do guarantee you a spot. There's 3 different types of residence rooms that we have. There's your traditional double dormitory style room, a traditional single dormitory style room, and then an apartment style where you have your own private bedroom, but you share an apartment setup with 2 to 3 other students, giving you your own private bathroom, living room, and kitchen. There are 34 different sources of caffeine on campus. So whether you're a coffee drinker, a tea drinker, or something a little fancier, you can definitely find your caffeine fix all across campus, whether it be the Canadian staple, which is Tim Hortons. We have 2 Starbucks located on campus, and then a number of our food service outlets where you can stop in at any point in time and grab a quick cup if you need it. There's dozens of fast, healthy, and fresh food options available on campus. Sure, you can get your stereotypical burgers and fries and pizza and things like that. Or maybe you want to try a little bit of Canadian and get a poutine. If you don't know what that is, trust me, you'll love it. But you can also get really healthy, fresh, locally sourced food as well. We can also cater to a wide variety of different dietary restrictions, whether that be vegetarian, vegan, halal, gluten restrictions, dairy restrictions, anything like that, we can definitely accommodate. Now, you're coming to university to get a degree, but we still want you to have fun while you're here. So whether that be the 200 different clubs and societies that we have on campus, or maybe as being part of our athletics program with 19 different varsity sports programs, 14 different intramural sports programs, and over 2,500 different recreation and fitness classes, which actually gives Waterloo one of the largest recreation and fitness programs in the country. Now, I did mention the cost of coming to school up here, so maybe you're going to have to work part-time while you're here. There's over 1,000 part-time jobs available on campus, anything from working in food services, in athletics, at the library, or maybe you enjoy your Waterloo experience so much that you want to give tours to prospective students and tell your Waterloo story as well. So now looking at preparation, preparing you for what's next. I mentioned at the start about Waterloo's creator-owned IP policy. So just to highlight again, if you create a product, a company, a design while you are a student at Waterloo, we don't take an ownership stake in that. A lot of other universities are going to maintain a percentage ownership stake because they figure you use their materials, their resources in order to come up with this. But at Waterloo, if you create it, you own 100% of it. It's one of the reasons that we've been so successful in launching 7 unicorn companies. Now, if you're not familiar with what a unicorn company is, it is a startup that has gone on to be valued at over $1 billion within its first 10 years. So 7 of those have started right here at the University of Waterloo. And then finally, co-op or cooperative education. It is kind of a big deal around here. I did highlight that we were the first university in Canada to introduce cooperative education, and we are currently now home to the largest co-op program of its kind anywhere in the world. So how does co-op work at Waterloo? So as you can see on the screen here, it's not a big block where you go to work. It's not like you are going once a week to do an internship, or it's not like you're going for a year to do some kind of work. At Waterloo, you're going to begin by studying 1, 2, or 3 academic terms. Most students, it's 2 academic terms. And after that is when your sequencing starts. So in your last academic term, before you go on a work term, you're going to be applying for jobs. Our co-op program is not a placement program. We do not put you into jobs. But those 7,000 plus employers all post jobs through an online system. You log in and you search for jobs that you're interested in. You get to apply for those jobs. So we're not dictating what you can or can't apply for. If you're interested, you can apply for it. You then get selected for interviews by some of those companies. You go for those interviews and then hopefully get hired. Once your work term starts, you go and work for that company for 4 months. All of our co-op jobs are paid positions, where you'll earn on average somewhere between $8,000 and $16,000 over the course of that 4 months. Average first work term earnings are $10,500 Canadian. Once that 4-month work term is done, you come back to campus, you study for another 4 months and apply for your next round of co-op jobs. Then you go back out and work for 4 months, come back to school, and you continue that path all the way through until you're finished and graduated. So it's definitely a bit of a nomadic lifestyle. You're constantly moving around, 4 months in Waterloo, 4 months elsewhere, 4 months in Waterloo, 4 months elsewhere. But what's the payoff? Is it really worth it? Well, the payoff is 4 to 6 work terms or up to 2 years of paid work experience in your field. Average co-op earnings for a Waterloo student are somewhere between $42,000 and $90,000 Canadian. Now that is over the course of your entire degree. It's not $90,000 every 4 months. I wish I could say that that was the case, because I would quit my job and become a co-op student if that was the case. But 42 to 90,000 over the course of your entire degree. So while 70% of students at Waterloo are in a co-op program, that leaves 30% that are just doing what we refer to as the regular system of study. And we don't want to forget about them either. So there's a number of certificates and programs that will give students the experiential learning experience to give you an edge in the job market after graduation. Now, if I were sitting in person with you right now, I would have a whole bunch of books laid out in front of me that you're able to pick up, look through, take home if you wish. However, since we're doing this virtually, I can't be there to give you those books, but we do want to make sure you still have access to them. So the first website link that you see on your screen there will send you to a page that will allow you to check out all the different brochures that you see on your screen there. You can download them digitally, or if you prefer a physical hard copy, you can request that we mail one to you, and we'll do that completely free of charge. The second link that you see on there is what's going to show off all of the different virtual events that we're doing. Waterloo here, we are not doing any travel, either domestically or internationally, at least for this term. And we're not sure what that looks like for the winter term yet, but at least for this term, we're definitely not traveling. So that last website there is going to give you a link to all of the different different virtual events we're offering. Every Wednesday, we run an event called Waterloo Wednesdays, where there's different topics covered, different guest speakers come in to highlight great things about Waterloo. Also on Saturday, November 7th, we have coming up our fall virtual open house. So while normally we would have an in-person event, that might mean that, while it's not a huge long drive to come up, chances are you probably wouldn't make the drive up from Illinois to come and see us in person. But with this virtual platform that we have now, you are able to participate in our open house event. And on that link as well, you'll also be able to check out a link to a pretty innovative and unique campus tour. So if you are into Iron Man or the Marvel movies at all, I would probably recommend giving a check to our newly launched campus tour. And finally, make sure you do follow us on social media. There's just 3 accounts that are posted up here. We have our Facebook, our Instagram, and our YouTube channel. We do have Twitter and Snapchat and all those other great things. These are just the big 3 that I like to highlight on here, mostly because I'm a lot older than you and I don't understand a lot of the new things. So I'm still stuck in the Facebook and Instagram world, but lots of other things that you are interested in, except for TikTok, we're not there yet. As well as my email address at the bottom. If you do have any questions that you don't get a chance to get answered here today, please don't hesitate to email me. If you have questions as you go through the process, I'm always happy to help out, whether it be just chatting via email or setting up a Zoom chat and walking you through some things in that regard. So that's the end of my presentation bit today. We do have some time left here. If you do have any questions, please feel free to pop them into the Q&A box and I will be happy to answer them out loud. And I'll also provide links in there for any relevant information if necessary. So please feel free to go ahead and ask away any questions that you've got. Okay, great question here. Does FAFSA cover tuition in Canada as well? So that's dependent on different universities. Some universities are approved FAFSA, others are not. At Waterloo specifically, yes, we are approved for FAFSA. However, it's only for non-co-op programs because the the U.S. government that monitors FAFSA or administers FAFSA does not allow it to be used for online programs. And while our co-op program is not an online program, there are online components that you have to do. And as a result, they have said that they will not allow it to be used for a co-op program. We're still working with them to try and have them understand what it really is that is covered in that program, that it's not an online program, but we're hopeful we'll get there at some point, but we're not there yet. So if you're in a non-co-op program, absolutely we are. And we're also an eligible international institution for any 529 plans that you have as well. Okay. Are there separate scholarship applications? So for the majority of our scholarships, they're automatic consideration. So just by virtue of getting an offer of admission, you're automatically going to be considered for the vast majority of our scholarships. Now, if there are some scholarships, there are a small number of scholarships that if you want to apply, they will require an application. But again, majority are automatic consideration. A small number will require an application if you choose to apply for one, and all of those can be found on our website. Okay, so a question here. One of our participants joining here today is a Canadian citizen living in the US with dual citizenship, asking if there's separate forms that you have to fill out. No, there's not. So you still go through and you submit the OUAC 105 application form. You'll check that you're a Canadian citizen on that box. It asks for a citizenship status. You just select Canadian, and you will be considered a Canadian student for tuition purposes. We don't take citizenship into consideration when we're making admissions decisions, but it does become a factor when it comes to tuition. So those big scary numbers I talked about in terms of tuition are going to be substantially less for you as a Canadian citizen. The governments here, the provincial governments in Canada administer or fund, I guess not fund, but subsidize Canadian citizens' tuition. So even if you've never lived in Canada a day in your life, if you are a Canadian citizen, you will be charged domestic tuition fees. So you'll just make sure you select Canadian on your application, and there may be some point because you have a US address, we may ask you at some point to verify that citizenship just by coming in once you're on campus and showing us, passport or something like that, and then we're set. So it avoids people from saying they're Canadian when they're really not. But they also would get stopped at the border because we wouldn't give them the things that they would need in order to get their study permit. So Canadian citizens, domestic fees, but doesn't factor into admissions decisions. Do all first-year students live in dorms on campus? Not all, but the majority definitely do. Because we have our first-year residence guarantee, most first-year students do take us up on that. But because it's not mandatory, there are a number of students maybe who grow up locally here in the city of Waterloo who choose to stay at home and just come to campus every day for their classes. Other students decide maybe they want to live off campus in a place, so it's not mandatory, but the majority of first-year students do live on campus. And then the majority of students will, after their first year, move off campus and find a house or an apartment with a number of friends that they're able to rent. So we still got some time left. If you do have questions, if you don't have any questions anymore, that's great. My email address is there as well. So if you log off and then think of another question, feel free to send me an email and be happy to follow up with that. So if you don't have any more questions, you're free to check out other things. But if you do, please feel free to continue to type them in and see if there's anything there.
And I'll go ahead and tell you all about next steps for if anyone does need to go about their day. So for our next steps, thank you so much for joining us. When you close this window, there will be a link to a very quick 4-question survey. We'd appreciate any feedback that you can provide. Also, a reminder that this was just one of many sessions being hosted. So be sure to sign up for additional sessions at IACAC.org. In about a week, you'll be able to find this session's recording as well as all other session recordings at IACAC.org. Thank you, and I'll turn it back to you for questions.
Thanks so much. So I see a question here. Is it possible to major across schools? The example that they give is computer science and political science. The answer is sometimes. It's not likely possible to major across schools. Sometimes you can, but generally speaking, no. What is more likely is you're able to minor across schools. So that's a little more common than majoring. So if you're looking to do like a dual major, most of our programs in our Faculty of Arts can do that. That's no problem. Other than that, doing dual majors across faculties can be either not possible or very tricky. The more common scenario is to minor across faculties. That's definitely something that occurs frequently. The only exception to that is engineering. You cannot minor in any of our engineering programs. You can only, if you're in our engineering programs, that's where you are. You can't, if you're not in engineering, you can't minor in them. I'll give it maybe about another minute, and I think that about wraps it up.
Thank you so much.
Thanks so much. Appreciate it.